Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome here if you're new. In this video I'm sharing with you a tutorial on how to make a honeycomb paper Christmas tree. So I saw this honeycomb Christmas tree first at Hobby Lobby. There was a green one, it was dark green and it had a little bit of glitter, and I was in love with it. However, I didn't want to pay $20 for it, and this was back in October. It took me a while to think about it, remember it, and also figure out how to make it. But I finally figured out how, and it's super easy. It does take a little bit of time, but it's actually very easy to put together. So let's get started. So for this project, the most fundamental thing is just having half of a Christmas tree. So here I have two pieces together, but I have them both together so that you can see that it looks like a Christmas tree. Now, making this is actually super easy. You could just take a piece of paper and cut out half the shape here, and then go from there and make your project. I'll show you how to do that. Now, the easiest way to do this with a piece of paper is first take a piece of paper and then fold it in half. And then just take a pair of scissors and then cut out a Christmas tree shape. So it's essentially just a bunch of triangles. So just keep that in mind while you're cutting, that you want to create triangles. And then from here, just cut out a little bit of a stem or a trunk. So this is your basic shape. I suggested folding it in half because what you can do is you can open it up and see whether that's the tree that you want. You can also do a fatter tree that's wider, or you can do something skinnier. So I recommend, if you're cutting it with a piece of paper, just to put it together and see what type of tree you'll get once the thing is finally made. So here, that's why I have it like this. It's harder to envision what the tree will look like when you just have half. So if this look works for you, you can just fold it back in half and use this as a template to cut out all your tree shapes or your half tree shapes. And then from there, all you would need to do is just glue them together. If you want to create this in your Silhouette Cameo or Cricut software, I'm including a very short tutorial for each program at the end of this video. Check that out if you want. So if you're not using a cutting machine, all you need to do is just take your shape and then trace it on to your paper. Now I know I'm using a white paper and I have a white background. You can't really see that well, but for demonstration purposes, all I'm doing is just tracing this shape along the paper. I also like to use the edge of this piece of paper here so that I don't have to cut that side out. And then I would just flip it and also trace it here. And then all you would need to do is just cut that out. I recommend tracing a few sheets, but then stacking 2 sheets underneath each trace sheet so that you can cut them out faster. It won't take as much time. So for this video, I'm actually making this green colored tree here. I obviously made a pink one and a red one. So with this pink and red one here, I used 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and I cut 4 halves of the trees out of 1 sheet. And so the size is limited by the paper, and I wanted to make it enough that I wouldn't have to cut that much. And so using that size, I have this size tree. But this here, I used 12 by 12 size paper, and I still cut 4 shapes out of each sheet of cardstock. But obviously, if you want to make it bigger, you can adjust that. You'll just cut less trees out of 1 piece of paper. Depends on how you want to do it, but you are sort of limited when you're using a cutting machine by what your machine can actually cut. But this is actually a pretty big tree as it is, so I thought the size was just fine. So as far as how many pieces to cut out, it actually is up to you to a certain point. So you do need enough that you can glue them all together and you can pull them around into a 3D Christmas tree. But what you could do is you can add more pieces so that the shapes here, or the distance between each shape here, is smaller, so you get more of an effect like this, rather than as here where it's pulled apart. As you can see, if you have less pieces and you pull this into a Christmas tree, this is what the tree will look like. So it does vary depending on how you like it. It can get tedious to cut all these pieces of paper out, so it depends on how far you want to go. I think the minimum for what I've done, and I think is a good number, is 60 pieces. That's why I cut 4 out of each piece of paper for a total of 15 pieces of paper. But I would say that the more you can add to it, the better. But these here, I did use 60 pieces of this half tree. But for this one here, I did use a nicer, thicker cardstock. So I am actually using 80 pieces for this one. And once you have all your pieces cut out, all you need to do is just glue them together. And so people have made different types of honeycomb 3D objects, mostly like balloons and different fans. For the Christmas tree, I find that it's easier to cut because of the way the tree is shaped, at least if you have something like this. And so the general principle is that you glue two pieces together one way, and then you glue the next portion the other way. So as you can see, first there's glue here, and then there's glue here, right? So you're just offsetting each time how it's glued, and let me show you. So what I'm using is my advanced tape glider. It's an adhesive roller, so it's adding glue in a way with like a tape runner, whereas you could use a hot glue gun, which is quicker and easier, but there are pros and cons. So this tree here I made using this advanced tape glider, and so it does hold up, but you have to make sure that it sticks really well because you can still pull it apart if you're not careful enough. It's because the glue is not necessarily bonding those sheets of paper when it's getting pulled that way. So there's a tension here that pulls two pieces of paper apart. It can come apart if you don't glue it well enough or press it hard enough so that it sticks. For this one, I did use a hot glue gun, and it's super easy. It was very fast. I didn't have to worry about it falling apart. However, I didn't like the way the hot glue felt between each sheet of paper. Overall, it doesn't matter because you can't tell, but with hot glue, what happens is you're melting glue between two pieces of paper, so there is sort of a raised area between the two pieces of paper, and it warps the look of your overall tree. You can see that I don't glue this portion here. Maybe I'll add a star, some 3D star or something like that. But when you add hot glue and you stack pieces over and over and over, it will start shifting and you won't get a nice even piece. And so I do like using the advanced tape glider because I can keep the stack of each piece of the tree together nicely. You can use glue. It doesn't really hurt the overall look. It still looks exactly like the one that I made with this advanced tape glider. So that's one option. However, I am using the advanced tape glider. I will say the hot glue is so easy. It dries quick, and again, you don't have to worry about it possibly coming undone. So with the Christmas tree that has three sort of portions, what I like to do first is I first glue here, here, and here, and then I add a little bit of a glue at the very top. This is going to be my first set of pieces and how I'm gluing it together. All right, so I'm adding a little bit there, and then I'm going along this line here in the tree. So with the tree, it makes it really easy to know where to add the adhesive. And this adds a nice little line of glue. The adhesive here doesn't add bulk, which is why I like using the advanced tape glider. So I'm taking another piece and then I'm pressing that on. I do like to rub it in to make sure that it is gluing tightly. And then I take this and I set it aside. And I do this for every two pieces that I have. So I'm cutting out an even number, so you do have to make an even number. If that's 60, if it's 80, if it's 100, it does need to be an even number, so you can even do 62 or 64 pieces, but you do have to keep it even. And then again, all you do is just stack it together. Make sure you press. If you don't have, you really don't have to do this if you are using the hot glue, but you do have to be careful that you don't push the glue out, because any glue that comes out from these pieces will show in your overall look. So just add tiny dots of glue to each portion. So you would do this for every single pair of tree halves that you have. And then once you have a nice stack, which I'm going to leave this here for now. Once you have a nice little stack, now these are two sheets each, or two pieces each. What I'm going to do is just pull it apart so you can see that's two pieces. I take two of them, and now I'm going to glue the second pattern. So because I glued at the very top and at each edge here, now I'm going to add glue to sort of the opposite pattern. I'm actually going to add it in between every triangle or every section here on the tree, as well as at the very bottom where the trunk is. So again, the first step was I glued here, 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 and here. So I'm actually going to mark that. It doesn't show up, so I'm going to mark it. So I glued here, here, and then here. So now where I want to glue is in between those portions. Right, so in between these two sections here, I'm going to add glue right there. And then in between here, I'm also going to go right there. And then a little bit at the very edge of the trunk. So now I'm gluing these two pieces together like this. One reason I like using the advanced tape glider too is because hot glue dries really quickly, and sometimes you'll find yourself having to work faster than you necessarily want to, and then it might end up with a sloppier product. So I like that I have that time to make sure that everything is lined up. So now what you have is you're starting to see that pattern where you get sort of these diamonds in the middle of your 3D tree. So it's just repeating this process over and over that you get this tree here. Now that's the easiest way I found to do it, is just first start with pairs, where you're starting with 2 pairs together and then gluing at that segment here, and then taking all those pairs and then gluing it in that sort of halfway point. If you don't want to do it that way and you don't find that that's the easiest way, you can also just build upon it as it goes. Again, you'll still glue the same pattern, it's just how you glue it or what order you glue it. I like to know that if I'm gluing every single piece like this, I'm going to do all of them that I need to glue like this. So again, I'm starting off at these points here, adding that piece, and just building upon this. What you can do is just glue right on top. So because I glued here, here, and here, and here, I'm going to do that portion in between. And the Christmas tree makes it really easy because there's sections here that I know where I need to glue without having to think too much about it. And as far as having to be precise in the halfway point where you have to glue it, you don't really need to be too precise. But as you can see, I'm just laying another piece on. And then now, because I last glued it in these middle portions, I have to start over at the original portion where I glue at the tip, glue at the line at the bottom of this triangle of this Christmas tree. So as you can see, you just go back and forth in your pattern of gluing. So the very first 2 pieces you put together, you'll glue one pattern, and then any subsequent is just oscillating between the first pattern and the second pattern. So as you can see, this is just the same. If I can pull it apart, it's just the same as when I made it here. So I'm showing both because you could do it both ways, but I find that grouping them is actually easier. That way I don't have to remember, oh wait, which one did I glue last time? I forgot. Especially if you have to walk away or you can't do it all at once. So now I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together. And as you can tell, I'm sure that as you go, you start building more and more pieces together and you get that honeycomb look. I am pressing it again because it's not a wet glue, and I want to make sure that that adhesive bonds to both sides of the paper. And as you can see, you get that honeycomb look, and you just need more and more. So this would have taken me forever to do on camera, so I did a great portion of it, and I'll show you what it looks like. This is with 60 pieces glued together. You can see as I do fan that out, that's the Christmas tree. Like that. And so this is 60 pieces together. If I wanted to and I had the patience, I can create another 60 to create that other half, and then there isn't much tension between each piece of paper, and it works really nicely, especially when you're using just an adhesive like this. You can get away with using less pieces if you're using a hot glue gun. But this one I wanted to make a little nicer than I did with those, which I made fairly quickly. This is a nicer cardstock too. This is something that I would love to keep and hopefully reuse. They sort of remind me of bottle brush, the bottle brush trees. But as it is right now, I could glue it together and it would be a nice 3D honeycomb tree. but I do want to add these extra pieces to it, so I will do that now. So I know when I'm gluing larger pieces together that I'm always going to glue sort of at that halfway point. And by grouping them like I did earlier, that just makes it easier to remember. I don't have to second guess where I am as far as gluing. I just know that when I'm gluing larger pieces together, I'm going to add it in at that halfway point, the glue. So then all I need to do is just finish up these pieces here. And again, I really like to press that in to make sure that it glues well. You don't have to do that, but I like the way that it is flat. It's nice and flat, so again, I think I'm repeating it for the third time. But I avoid using glue for that reason. If you had hot glue, there would be sort of a lumpier piece. And then I'm adding it to my larger piece here. Okay, so it is fairly thick, as you can see. I did use 20 pieces of cardstock. As you can see, when I only open it halfway, it's very pretty. I love the way that it looks, and I love this dark green. And then in terms of actually gluing this whole portion together, I just add glue to, again, the halfway points of this tree, as I have been doing when putting together the larger pieces. I'm going to add a little bit of extra glue. Okay, so I have glue there, and then all I'm going to do is just pull it together like this, and then hold it at the points that the tree meets. I'm actually just going to grab like a large chunk together. Now, the default state of this piece here is it wants to come undone. It wants to lay flat like that little booklet that I just had before I pulled it all together. So what I like to do is, while it's still bonding together, I like to just take a binder clip and just clip it for I like to just do this for maybe a couple of minutes. That way it has time to bond together. And one thing you can do is you can use hot glue at this very last step. I would just say be very careful. Hot glue does dry really fast, as I've said, and you don't want to get it all over your project. So, I mean, I am in love with this. I had wanted one of these and I just didn't want to pay for it. And now I can make some in the Christmas colors that I want, which is obviously pink and red and just different green ones. And so one thing is that there is this bit of a little hole right here. You can add a star to it if you like. I have these little bobble things here. I can always add a couple to the very top, or just one. Let me show you what that looks like. So I can add just a foam ball to the top if I want. It doesn't necessarily bother me, but a nice little gold element on top, like a star, would be really pretty. One thing you can do as well is just take a paintbrush and add a little bit of glue to the very edge, and then sprinkle glitter on top so that there's a little bit of glittery edge to each portion. But overall, super easy to make, just took a little bit of time, and you do have to cut out all these pieces. You can see here that when you have more pieces, there isn't as much tension, so I don't think that this will come undone as easily as if you use less pieces. So I am going to switch over and show you what it looks like to create this shape yourself in Cricut or Silhouette Cameo software. Okay, so let's start in Silhouette Studio software. I have the business edition, but this shouldn't matter. I am still using the same basic functions. And here on my project mat, I have a isosceles triangle. So this is something I brought into Silhouette Studio. It's not something I created, so you could just take any triangle that you have. And I'm gonna first select on it and then copy, or I'm hitting Command C with a Mac. Just copy and paste, and then you get a second one. I'm going to go to the sidebar here and go to scale. And here I'm going to scale it so that it's maybe 115% bigger. So make sure that's selected, and then I'm going to make it 115% bigger. So it makes it a slightly bigger triangle. I think maybe I want something bigger than that. I'll do 125. So here it's the same triangle scaled up a little bigger, and I'm going to copy and paste that to get another one, and I'm going to scale this also 125% bigger. So now I have 3 triangles, as you can see. And then I'm just going to go over to the left hand side and just draw a small little trunk. I'm going to select all of my objects here. And then I'm going to make sure that they're centered horizontally. And then all I want to do is just go to the Modify tab, which is here, and then select Weld. So now that's one whole piece, and you can tell it is a Christmas tree. But for my project, I only want half. So I'm going to go back to the left-hand side in the drawing tools, and then I'm going to select the rectangle, and then I'm going to draw a rectangle that's at least taller than the Christmas tree object itself. And then I'm going to drag this rectangle so that it's halfway in between this Christmas tree here. And then I'm going to select both objects, so the rectangle and the Christmas tree. And then I'm going to select Subtract All. I'm still in the Modify tab on the right hand side. So then when I hit Subtract All, this is what happens. You can pull apart this rectangle here, and then you're left with just 1/2 of that Christmas tree. So I'm just going to delete that off. And this is something you can use to cut your half Christmas trees for this project. You can get about 4 of these on one page. So that was just an easy way to create that Christmas tree, and then also just cut it or bisect it in half to get that half Christmas tree. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Cricut Design Space. Okay, so once you're in Cricut Design Space, you can go over to the Shapes tab on the left and then select on Triangle. So that should give you a nice, I believe this is an equilateral triangle. I'm going to take off the sizing lock here on this tab. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink it a little bit. It's going to look more like an isosceles triangle like I did before. So now that it looks like that, I'm going to lock that. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and click Command C and then copy and paste. So now I have a second triangle exactly the same. Now I did want to note that I put the sizing lock back on, so now it resizes proportionally. And then I'm just going to drag it so that it's a bigger rectangle, like something like that. And then I'm going to copy and paste another triangle, and then I'm also going to drag the corner so that I can resize this as well. And then I'm going to go to the Shapes tab and select a square. Again, I'm going to unlock the sizing on the sizing tab, and then I'm going to make it more like a rectangle. Put that back on. And then I'm going to add my little trunk. Okay, so now that I have all my pieces here, I am going to shrink this just a little bit. So I have all my pieces together. I'm going to select them all, and then I'm going to go to Align, and I want them to all be centered horizontally. So that way they're nice and lined up. And then I'm going to select all of them again and go over to the lower right hand corner and hit Weld. So now it's one whole piece. I'm going to size this down a little bit so that it looks better on my workspace. I'm now going to go ahead and go over to the Shapes tab and then create that square. And I'm going to create a square that's bigger than or taller than my rectangle. So now I'm just creating a rectangle again as I did in Silhouette software. And I want to make sure it's taller than the Christmas tree that I made. I do want this to be in the front. So you can right click and hit Send to Front. That way it sits right on top. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And then line that up, that tip of the Christmas tree with the edge of this rectangle. Select both and I'm going to hit Slice. So I'll just do that really quick. So I'm hitting Control All, that selects both the Christmas tree and the rectangle. And then I'm going to go over to the Slice area right here in the lower right hand corner, and I'm going to hit Slice. And this is the result that you get. you can start deleting off pieces. So I'm gonna select the right hand side and then delete that and pull it off. And then you get your half Christmas tree. And as you can see, there are 2 sections of this Christmas tree now. I bisected it so that there's 2 halves, and that way you can just go ahead and duplicate as many as you can on one sheet, however size paper you're making, and then just hit make it. So yeah, that is my tutorial on this honeycomb Christmas tree. Let me know if you have any questions down below, or if there's something that I could elaborate on more. I hope you enjoyed these as much as I enjoyed making them. Thank you so much and have a great holiday. Okay, one last thing I wanted to share with you. So my great friend Erica at Creations by Erica on Instagram sent me something, and I wanted to open it up on camera and show you. So she sent me this elf last year as Pearl Paper Flowers, which is what my Instagram name is, and obviously it has my name on it. It's a cute little elf, and she sent me this in 2019, and it's so cute. But she also sent me another one this year, and it's so cute. It has 2020 on this one. Right, so they're identical. This one has a little bow. And then she also sent a certificate of elf adoption. This would be really cute. Right, so one for each elf. So here's all her information. I have it linked down below as well. So check it out if you have time, if you're interested. And then here, I'm excited to open this up and see what this looks like. I had it upside down. Oh, wow. This is one of the Santa Cam ornaments. So that's really cute if you have children that are misbehaving. You can have this on your tree to make sure that they know that Santa is watching. This is so, so cute. Thank you so much, Erica. Again, I love this little tinsel here. It's just so cute. So once again, this is Creations by Erica. I have her information linked down below.